I didn't almost choke on my juice. But in this week of shittery, of screw ups and mess ups, there's this video. Enjoy. Hello, I'm Joseph. Today we're going to go over how to install Klipper on the Anycubic Kobra Go and Neo. Now, before we dive into everything here, I want to make three things very clear. One, you will lose the ability to control the printer via the screen. You'll have to be using a web browser or your phone or anything else that you can remotely connect to a single board computer. Number two, you'll no longer be loading up your G-code files in an SD card and putting it into any device. Instead, you'll be using your web browser or your phone or whatever else to interact with these little PC boards. Third is do not expect to be able to print faster than what is already spec'd for those printers. So 100 millimeters a second is the max you're going to get. Beyond that, you'll need to upgrade the hot end, you'll need to upgrade the nozzle, you need to upgrade the fan or the blowing system, the cooling system on the printer itself to be able to have all of those things fall into place to be able to leverage Klipper better. However, you can be able to print at the maximum speed with much better quality thanks to input shaping or resonance compensation. Now, you don't need any special tooling to enable that feature. You will need to do a print, but you can use these as well to purchase a separate device called an accelerometer. Some of them are USB based, others you'll use these GPIO pins here on these boards here to go ahead and plug it into that. But that is that. So this all you need at for the time being to be able to progress through this is an extra SD card and a single board computer. Now the ones I'm showing here are about $20. These are the OrangePi 3.0. It is a quad-core ARM processor. It has a gigabyte of RAM, and technically one of these can run up to 4 to 5 different printers. So if you only want to buy one board, you can run multiple printers. You can run Klipper UI. You can run a webcam with it. Now the accelerometer will only work for a given printer at a time, so it's not something you can run at every single printer. Another gotcha is that if this only has a single USB-A port. Let me bring this out here. This only has a single USB-A port, so you'll need to have either purchase the hat that this has available to it, gives you 2 additional USB-A ports, or you can just do a USB-A hub. A gotcha with the USB-A hub is that time in and time again, this is why I have multiples now, the hub will fail. It will disconnect, and all printers that are leveraging this one PCB will stop working. Another issue I've run into when trying to isolate multiples onto a single board is that if one has a critical failure, maybe the thermistor failed for whatever reason, all other printers will stop. I don't know how to prevent that. Maybe there is some way, but because there are multiple instances, they should not be affected. However, they are. So I've had lost multiple prints across multiple printers trying to leverage and cheap out and just get one board there. Okay, so with that said, let me just go around the board a little bit here. So we have a dedicated Ethernet, but we also have a Wi-Fi connection. This comes with the actual board itself. It's not a separate purchase. It is powered via a USB-C port, and the USB-A port plugs directly into the printer. And then it has, I think this is a macro, and not a mini, a macro HDMI. You'll need an adapter if you want to get video out, and you can do like a Klipper UI to like a cheap 7-inch display, or you can do Klipper UI via an Android tablet remotely and have it, work that way if you want to. But I'm not going to go through Klipper UI. I'm not going to go through how to set up a webcam. It's simply just to use this board to get your printer working. So if you understand all those limitations and you're aware that you can lose your screen, you're not going to really be able to print any faster, but you can print faster at better quality with the existing limitations, and that you won't be, you'll be tethered to a some type of web browser to be able to control the printer. Then yeah, let's move on. I'm going to jump over to the computer and we can go on from there. Now, this print, by the way, is this case I will put in the description. I didn't design this, someone else did. I thought it was really novel of that. And I actually have like a 2-color. These are actually 3D printed screws because I didn't feel like actually using them. You can also just tape the sides, to be honest, if you don't want to purchase any additional hardware to to have this work here. And if you do need access to GPIO pins, obviously this doesn't really work because it kind of covers them up with the honeycomb design there. So let's get to the computer and move on from there.
Okay, so I'll provide links to each of these starting points for what to download. We're going to start with downloading the distribution because that's going to be the largest download that we will have to take, and we can download other things and install them while this is still downloading. So this is the OrangePi 03. We're going to scroll down to official images and use the Debian image. Now they do have a Raspberry Pi variant, and you can use the Raspberry Pi imager and do it all that way, but the Debian will be our next best bet. Technically, Arch is the best option for this single board computer, but the Kali installer that we will also use does not support Arch currently. It's only Debian and an Ubuntu based one. So Debian images, and then we're going to go to the one with says Linux kernel 6.1 or whatever the highest variant that you see at the time. And then we're going to go with the 1 GB to 2 GB variant. If you've purchased a different RAM size, which is 1.5 or 4 GB, you'll need to go to those individually. But the 1 or 2 gig variant, it's just they're together for this. I'm not sure why. And then what we want is bookworm server. We don't need a desktop because that's going to use up RAM that we don't need to be used. So only the server one. And bookworm is the newest one that was released just last year. So we're going to do that and then click on the download option there. I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to bother, but I will say that these are 7-zip files. If you don't have a way to open up 7-zip, I'll provide a link to the 7-zip extractor. Windows 11 already has it built in, so you don't have to worry about it if you already are on Windows 11. Okay, and then the last thing as we're doing all this as well, or the next thing is we're going to want to download the Angry IP scanner. I'll provide a link to this exact same page, but we just download the Windows installer. If you're on Mac OS or Linux, they have different install options there. So everything I say for this will apply to those. You can do technically the same thing. And then the last thing will be the etcher. And you can go to their download thing. Let's see. There we go. Blanca Etcher and download Etcher. So you click download, install it, install Angry IP scanner, and then extract the thing whenever you can. But as we're waiting for all this stuff to download and you have the Angry IP scanner, what we're going to go ahead and do is open it up. So you can see I have it here. And then we can leave this as is. This will take your local network IP address and go from 0 to 255 by default. That's fine, unless you have something special. I have .3 as my kind of provider, but yours might be .2 or .1 or 0. And then we're going to go to preferences, and we go to from preferences down to scanning for ports. And we literally just want to look for port 22. We don't need to look for any other ports there. And then let's see, hit OK. Actually, hold on. In display, we want to say hosts with open ports only, so we're not seeing a ton of different IP addresses. Okay, so we went through settings, and now we're going to go ahead and hit start. This is just to see the IP addresses currently that has port 22 open. You want to keep this list available to you, so when you scan again, when we get the system up and running, we can see exactly what's going on. So here we go. I have some IP addresses now, and I believe that's all that's going to be there. So for you, you shouldn't have that many either. And it'll be very easy to see when a new IP address pops up with port 22, and that will be the port we will use to access this thing here. So I'm going to let that continue to run, but you can see that basically anything that shows up in between this that is not any of these numbers moving forward will be the IP address you'll want to access. Okay, so with Blanc Etcher, and let's say that you've downloaded your distribution, we can go ahead and open Blanc Etcher up. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And put in your SD card with the USB stick. Choose from a file. And if I go to downloads and I go to, where did I put the image here? There you go, OrangePi, Debian Bookworm server. Go ahead and open that. And then the target will be the SD card. Now make sure it matches what you see here. Mine was the 8 GB version. This says 7.99, but that's the same thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and check that, hit select, and flash. Now this does not mean, I'm gonna hit OK here. This does not mean that it'll automatically have Wi-Fi and start working. You technically need to still set that up. So you will want to plug this in via Ethernet before we can actually access this. So as this is flashing, you'll need to also source some Ethernet cord and plug that in with the SD card attached to it. It's going to take a few minutes to boot up, but after that, it should be just fine. Okay, we've gone ahead and flashed the SD card. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and remove the SD card from the computer. It should already extract it, so you don't have to do anything special. And then, let me show the webcam. I'm going to go ahead and take this one here, and at the back under part of the case, if you did print it, if not, it'll literally just be underneath the actual board here. So I have an SD card already put in there. But I'm going to go ahead and place the 8 GB card in there, and it goes facing down. So you're going to have this piece here, if this can focus at all. I don't think it will. But have the face of the SD card facing down, and then we're going to go ahead and slot it into there. It's a little difficult to see. It is not a push-in SD card. It is literally you slide it in and then it just stays there. Then I have my Ethernet cord. Oh, now it wants to focus. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in as well. Lastly, I'm going to take my USB-C port and plug that in as well. And you should see some lights turn on. So here, there's the light, it's turned on. And we're going to give this a couple minutes before it will show up on the network. So let's go ahead and now take this off. And just for reference, we will be able to remove the Ethernet port once we set up Wi-Fi. But right now, we still need to be able to get access to the actual device. Okay, so I've gone ahead and waited a couple minutes. I've run the scanner one more time and actually took a screenshot just in case. So if you don't want to have to write everything down, you can definitely do that. And you can see that this IP address is now available for me to access. So I can go ahead and copy the IP address with Control-C or right-click and go to copy IP address. And then if you're on Windows 10, you're going to want to open up PowerShell. PowerShell. This has SSH built into it. On Windows 11, you can just use a regular terminal, but I'll just use PowerShell for now. And then Mac and Linux both have these as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to type in, can I make this any bigger? Yes, I can. So I'm going to type in SSH OrangePi at, and then I'm going to right click to paste the IP address, or if you're on like Mac or Windows, or sorry, Mac or Linux, it's like Apple V, or Linux Apple, or Control-Shift-V. And so yeah, paste the IP address, press enter, and then type in Y for yes. Sorry, I guess I gotta type in yes for yes. The password will also be OrangePi. So now we are in the system. There's a lot of good stuff showing here. All we want to do now is just be able to get to the Wi-Fi and be able to set the Wi-Fi so that we can remove the Ethernet cord moving forward. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and set up the Wi-Fi. So in order to do this, what we're going to want to do is use the built-in network manager for Debian Bookworm. So we have sudo CLI, and we want to go ahead and turn on the Wi-Fi. So it's going to be radio Wi-Fi on. We're going to go ahead and press enter. The password is the same password we use, so it's OrangePi. And then what we're going to do again is retype the command, or just press up. And instead of doing radio or any of that other stuff, we can just do device, Wi-Fi, and then list. This is going to list all the Wi-Fi connections on the system around you. So here we have that. And then we can go ahead and set up the Wi-Fi with the thing. So I am using this one here. That's my best bet. I press Q to go ahead and quit the list. If you're not sure how to exit that, you can also do Control C if anything. So I'm going to type in sudo nm CLI again. And then we're going to do device Wi-Fi, spell it correctly, connect SSID, or sorry, not SSID. This will be the actual thing. I'll put mine in quotes here since it's spaced. And then the password, and then the actual password. There we go. And now it's activated. Now we want to go ahead and just verify, so we can do sudo nm CLI connection show. And there we go. Now we have our wired connection, and the Wi-Fi is also connected. It's WLAN and Ethernet. So everything's set up now. If you want, you can go ahead and unplug your Ethernet. So if I go ahead and bring up the webcam, I'm going to go ahead and unplug this. Now, this may break your connection with the with the with your OrangePi, and that's okay. So what you can go and do is go back to your scanner and just scan one more time just to make sure it hasn't changed. It may change when switching from Ethernet to Wi-Fi only. So just keep that in mind. Uh, so it has lost connection as we are scanning the ports here, and we should see some IP addresses show up shortly. Okay, if we look at the original list, 20 was not on there. So now it has changed to 20. I can right click, copy IP address, or I can just do the same. But again, we're going to do SSH OrangePi, and then we're going to put in the new IP address, and then type in yes, and OrangePi as the password. So that's it. Now we're back into our system, and it is on Ethernet. You can go ahead and unplug this, move this wherever you want, although this will technically be living right next to your printer. Next step we're going to do is just go ahead and get into Kali, start the Kali installation process, compile a custom firmware for your printer, and we'll move on from there. We are now looking at the Ka, I guess. I'm not sure about whatever it's called. This is just a GitHub repository for it, but it has the things that we're going to want to do. So we'll go ahead and copy this. You can click the little copy icon on GitHub itself. The link will be in the description. And we're going to go back to our SSH terminal that we've SSH'd into an OrangePi, which we've already previously talked about. We can go ahead and right click to paste on Windows and just press enter. It may ask you for the password. Password again is OrangePi. So you type that in. And this may take a while because it needs to go and download a bunch of updates since October, and it's been many months. So just sit tight, let this install, and when it's done, we'll jump back. It is finished, and now we're going to go back to the GitHub repository and copy the next command. So we'll just hit the copy on it, and then go back here and right click again, and press enter. And then as that's copying, we can go back to the scripts here, and then go ahead and copy this last command before we jump into their control box that they're going to give us. So it started up. Now what we want to do is go ahead and install Klipper, Moonraker, and then I'm going to go over Mainsail. I keep calling it Moonsail for some reason, but Mainsail, you can also do Fluent, but Mainsail is the one I generally use, so I'll go over how I use that. So let's go ahead and type it in the number 1 for install and press enter. And then we're going to go ahead and type in 1 for Klipper. And we're going to leave it default, which is Python 3.x. And we're going to leave the number of printers to install to just 1. If you're going to do multiple installations, you can do that as well. I've given mine custom names. I'm not going to go through that. We're going to keep it simple. Just do 1 printer installation of Klipper. So this is going to go ahead and clone the Klipper repository, do a couple of things to set that up, and then we'll go ahead and jump back as soon as this is done. Klipper should finish now and return you back to the menu. We're going to go ahead and continue with installing Moonraker and Mainsail. So we're going to go ahead and type in number 2, press enter, and press Y to install. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to take a while too, so we'll be right back. We'll go ahead and continue on with installing the Mainsail. So number 3, and then press enter. And repeat the process of waiting. A little bit of a side note, you do want to install the recommended macros, so Y for that, and then continue on. Now we've did all the technically hard parts, but we still got a little bit more of a journey. We need to go ahead and start to compile firmware for Klipper to be running on this machine. Now, I do want to make a note. There is a lovely kind of a repository of pre-built binaries. So we can go to the configuration, sorry, not the configuration, the binary or bin folder, and then download Klipper 0.12. I believe that's the last version, but do note every update of Klipper needs to be bound by its firmware. So every time you update Klipper through the web interface, you also need to recompile a new firmware for your printer. So this may not even be the right version. So I'm still going to go through how to actually compile the firmware, how to get it to your computer, and how to flash it on an SD card. But like I said, if this is the current version of Klipper that you already have installed on your Mainsail device, you don't have to worry about it. Now, you could be asking, well, how do I know what version of Klipper I need and if it's going to be in this repository? I'll definitely link this repository in the description, by the way. Well, you can now go into your web interface. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab. I'm typing 192 and 120 because that was my IP address. And here we have a Mainsail interface. And we can go ahead and go down to machine, and the machine will tell us this is 12.065, which means that the firmware that was last loaded here back 2 months ago is actually out of date. We don't want to be using this binary in that term. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my terminal, and then go ahead and go to let's go back for B, and then we're going to go to 4 for advance, and we're going to go to build only because unfortunately we cannot flash to the machine directly, at least not for this specific printer. We're going to go ahead and change the microprocessing architect to the semiconductor HC32F460. We pressed spacebar, by the way. So I pressed enter. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. I pressed enter to go into that. I pressed my arrow keys to go up and down, and spacebar to select the item. Then the common interface, I believe it is that. I will double check. Give me 1 second. Okay, so just to confirm, the communication interface needs to be, so we're going to press enter to go into it. I select the window, press enter. We're going to go to PA2 and PA3 and press spacebar. Everything else we can leave as is, I believe so, because this is actually in the actual documentation for Klipper itself for the Kobra Go. It's the same for the Neo as well. So we're going to leave everything as is, and we're going to press Q. Q prompts to save, and then we press Y for yes. So this is going to go ahead and take a little bit of time to go ahead and build the actual firmware. So we're going to wait a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we've built the firmware. We need to now grab it. So I'm going to ask you to download one more piece of software. Yes, I know it's a pain in the butt, but let's go ahead and go back to the browser, and we're going to go down to FileZilla and just download the Windows client. It's on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Just choose the free edition. We don't need anything special there. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to hit OK. We can close the ad. And once that installs, I'll be right back. Okay, so change of plans, because if you try to click that link to download FileZilla, you'll find out very quickly how slow that download is. So we already have a web interface. We can access the web interface, and we can go ahead and download files from here. So what we're going to do is go to our Klipper thing here, and we're going to go ahead and type in B for back and Q for quit. And we're going to go ahead and type in CP for copy paste. We're going to do Klipper. And then it was outs and clipper.bin. Clipper.bin. And then we're going to copy that to printer data. Forgot exactly what's here. I think it's config. Yeah, printer data config. And then we're going to call it firmware.bin. This way, we don't need to download yet another freaking piece of software and type in some more other stuff. So now when we go to our main cell interface and we go back to the machine here, you can see that we now have firmware.bin. You can go ahead and just checkbox and download. Easy. Now it is in a zip file, obviously, but we can go ahead and open that and just extract the firmware.bin. Now take the SD card out from here. Let me turn on the webcam for a second. The SD card. Okay, don't break my monitor. The SD card that is in your printer, if that will focus, just take that out, put it into your computer, because that's what we're going to use to load. So yeah, take that, copy it, or drag it over. I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and copy it over. And I have printer.g. This is my, all my G codes are for the printer. Slap it in there. Just make sure it's called firmware.bin. And then we can go ahead and right click and eject. That's it. Now we're going to go ahead and take that SD card out of the computer. And if I turn the webcam back on, wherever my mouse is at, it's hard to see. Before we turn the printer on, it should be off at this point, just for some clarification. But before we turn it on, we're going to go ahead and put in the SD card that was already in here, and it now has firmware.bin. You're going to press it in, make sure it's always pressed, and then we're going to go ahead and turn on the machine. So you're going to hear some fans, unfortunately, but that'll be that. For me, on the Kobra Go's, every Kobra Go I've done this on, it says updating firmware. On the Kobra Neo, it's a completely black screen. And I will just make some clarification. This screen will not update at all. So what I would suggest is for the next 10 minutes, just walk away, go make some coffee, wash some dishes or something, take a shower, and then come back. And what we're going to do is just turn it off, take the SD card out, and then we'll verify if the Klipper instance is actually there. Okay, I've gone ahead and I made some coffee. This is still saying update firmware as I said it would. If you have the Neo, it'll just be completely off. So what to do is go ahead and turn off the machine from the back here. So that's turning off the switch in the back. Okay, that's been turned off. Now we're going to go ahead and take out the SD card. So put it out, completely off. And then we're going to go ahead and turn the machine back on. When you turn it on, if the screen is completely black, then I have confirmed that we have flashed this successfully, which is good. And we can go ahead and move on. If the screen turns back on and it still says whatever you saw before, not updating firmware, but the old UI and everything else that was on there, then you didn't name it firmware.bin correctly. We are back in the web interface. And what we're going to want to do is back in the machine section here, we can actually just checkbox these and delete them just in case you don't technically need it anymore. And we can go to printer. So we're just going to go ahead and click on printer. And what we want to do is grab this ID here. So we're going to go ahead and just copy this path. We're going to go back to our terminal and we're going to do ls space -la and paste in the path, which it doesn't say because I forgot a very important step. Okay, let me show the webcam again. So I have a USB cord here. That wasn't there. I'll move this over. So I have a USB cord here. I'm going to plug the USB-A port into the device and a USB-C port into the printer itself. So just for some confirmation here is the port itself. I'm plugging in the USB-C port. I hope this is a data cable, not just a power cable. So that it is in the USB-C port. And then on the actual device that we have, that we've set up and everything else that's actively running, we can go ahead and just plug that into the USB-A port. And it's fine if the printer is running too. That doesn't need to be turned on at all. So now they are both plugged into each other. So USB-A to USB-C and are plugged into each other that way. Now we can go back to our terminal and just retype the command or press up and enter. Okay, and it actually says it cannot connect. So let me do one more thing. I think we might have to do sudo and then OrangePi is the password. So no, it's not finding that. So serial by, I have the printer on. It's not showing up. Technically it should. So 1 second for an intermission. Okay, so I said maybe that cable might be a data only cable. It was a data, or sorry, a charge only cable. It was a charge only cable. So I've swapped my cable, my USB-C cable, just for confirmation. I have a different USB cable in here now than what was before. And when I go back to my terminal, you don't need sudo, by the way. When I do by ID, it works just fine now. So I'm getting the actual path. I can go ahead and copy this bit here and right click or control C to copy. Let's go back to our browser. And in our browser, we're going to go ahead and change this bit here and paste it in. We're not going to do much else right now. We're just simply going to do that one change and save and restart. Let me move my coffee off this printer. So there we are. Now we have that set. Now if we go to the dashboard, you can see that there's no more errors. If you see that, don't do anything right now. Don't try to set up any prints or anything else like that because we still have one more step to go. So in a repository I will link, there's one of my configurations for the Kobra Go and the Kobra Neo, and there's also some others that have their own configurations as well. Because I'm using the Kobra Go and because I've already set this up before and I know it best, my Kobra Go, actually my Neo is not here. That is weird. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my Kobra Go. If you have the Neo, you can grab one of theirs to start with, like the one code rookie is one there for the Neo, and that's the Sonic pad itself. But here's the Kobra Go's printer setup that I have. What we're gonna do is go ahead and copy everything after the MCU. So X stepper and down, and we're gonna stop at where it says save config. We don't need that there. That's specific to the machine that I had provided at that time. And we're gonna go back to main cell, go to the machine section, go to printer. That's the wrong one. And you'll just have printer there, but just for some clarification on this stuff here, I'm gonna go ahead and delete everything before we continue. Just make sure that you have virtual SD card, MCU, and include main cell, and then we can go ahead and paste in the stuff that we have here. But we need to do a couple changes, at least for this recording of this video. First is in the Z, stepper Z, we need to go ahead and enable the end stop and take off this minimum position and enable the -10. Then we need to go into our extruder and also do the same. Go ahead and uncomment these lines. You can just do them individually, or you can select them all, press Control/ to comment and uncomment. The next thing we need to do is change the bed mesh because this is a 10 by 10 grid, which is a lot. You can just do 5 by 5. It'll cut down your time it takes to level the bed the first time. Screw tail with dust, nothing needs to change there. Probe, we need to go ahead and enable the Z offset. And then the last thing is we need to get rid of this time-lapse configuration. And then when you do, you can go ahead and save and restart. Now, when you restart, it may not pick it up immediately, and you may need to restart a second time. I'm going to show this in a clip, but you'll see what I mean. Then we can go ahead and click on restart in the web interface. And it should work now. There we go. I'm not sure what happened. This is going to be a common occurrence working with the Neo and the Go because their motherboard sometimes really slow, weird things happen, and you may want to do a bunch of restarts or just restart the whole system. By the way, you can restart the whole system by clicking the power button and hitting reboot if all else fails. So now we have that all set. I'm going to go back to the dashboard now, and you can see now we have a bunch of things here that we can work with. We have filament load, filament unload. I don't remember if I set these up correctly, so I wouldn't use them offhand per se, but now we can check things. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the webcam and make it just ever so slightly smaller so we can fit it in here. So the first thing we're going to want to test is homing. So I have the printer here, and on the main interface, there is a home button here. So we're going to go ahead and click on home. There we go. We should be able to now correctly home the printer itself. Go down to the Z-stop. There we go. So we were able to home it. Now what we want to do is go and preheat the bed, and we're going to do an initial, or sorry, not preheat the bed. We're going to want to do a Z offset, but we still need to preheat the bed anyway. So let me move the webcam right here and put this down real quick. Actually, we don't need the camera on technically. So here we can just type in the values. So we can do 190, press enter, and then type in 60 and press enter. If you need to set some presets for here, it's actually in the main cog thing here. And you can click down into presets, and we can add a preset for PLA. So we type in PLA and checkbox the extruder and heater, 190 and 60, and store. So now when we click on presets, we have PLA and cooldown. So we're going to go ahead and let this set up. One thing I recommend is before we do the Z offset is we need to move the print head over to the center. So we're going to press in 100 and then type in 10. And then actually let me bring up the camera so you can see what's going on here. So, and then we're going to press in the Y for move the camera of 110. That should have put it at smack dab in the middle of the bed. I have all this stuff on this printer. That's not that great. So yeah, now it's in the middle of the bed. So let me go ahead and turn this off real quick. And I'm going to let this bed preheat, and then we'll be right back. The bed is now preheated. So what we'll do is go to our console, and let me bring up the webcam too and then move this over. So in our console, we're going to type in probe calibrate, and then we're going to go ahead and press enter. But let me move the camera here. Don't fall into my coffee, please. Or do and don't, or don't. What do you want to do, webcam? You tell me. How do you feel today? Okay, so probe calibrate. You notice I'm typing all these commands or doing all these commands preemptively. You don't have to wait for your machine to have all these other commands kind of like queued up. So that's going to go ahead and go down. Okay, and now I could just put the paper there. Okay, and we're going to go down. Let me move this back up here. I'm going to go down -1. Okay, I got slightly interrupted there. We're going to go ahead and press -1 again. -1. And as they get this a little closer to the bed, you're going to want to de-increment to like 0.1. So do 0.1. And wait until there's some drag to the actual paper. Come on. You can do this. Actually, it's going to be like, I could probably do like a whole nother millimeter. Okay, so that's it's catching a little now. Go down in increments of 1. Okay, that's completely caught. So I'm going to go up a millimeter. And then I'm going to, well, it's still a little, that might be okay. No, that's, we'll go up a little bit more. There you go. That, I'm hoping that'll be enough. You can always change this later. You don't have to do this exact process, but this will help us for bed leveling and our first print. So I'm going to go down just a little bit here. See how that looks at the bed. Let's go back up a little bit and then accept. So that has saved, but it didn't actually save to our current instance, or it did, but it's not going to save until we actually save config, which is the button up here where my camera is currently blocking. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save config. It's going to reboot. So we're going to go have to preheat again. So preset, preheat PLA. And then now we can go ahead and do our bed leveling. So if we go back over to height map and home and calibrate and hit OK, this will go ahead and home and start the bed leveling process. I'm not going to really go into this right now. Just make sure you have the machine preheated. Everything else is set. And I'll be right back as soon as this finishes. Okay, now the printer has finished with its homing. You can check out the height map by going to height map, and you can see how that looks there. Now this is a 10 by 10, so it took much longer than the 5 by 5 I recommended you guys to set up. But you can see it's there. There's a rather large difference in the bed itself. The 0 point is the front left. So you can see the right side is completely off by a lot, and that's expected. So I'm going to leave that as is, but what we want to do is click the Save Configuration. Great. Now we can go back to the dashboard. We can rehome as necessary, and you can start to print G-code files. So if I go ahead and go home, we can try to slice anything. Now, the way I've set up the configuration for the Kobra Go is that the bed will always preload before a print starts. You don't have to put anything special into Cure, Orca Slicer, Prusa Slicer, or any other slicer that you're going to use. It should be good as is. So yeah, now you would just upload your G-code. You have a couple ways you can do that. You can go to the G-code file section and click on upload and upload that way. I don't know which ones actually are for the Kobra Go. So we have Nipper Hander. I'm not quite sure what that is, but you can upload it that way. You can also just drag files directly onto your browser. It'll upload it that way. And we have stuff like we can right click and preheat if we want it to. So that was for ABS, I think, not ABS, but PLA, not PLA, PET-G. So yeah, but you can see that there. Yeah, there's not too much else I'm going to go into in terms of in-depth for this because you kind of have it all set up now. You can upload your G-codes directly to your browser. Just remember the IP address. You can go to it on your phone. And as long as you're inside your local network, if you're outside and you're hoping to maybe remotely connect to this, don't bother. I wouldn't even recommend it because it is extremely dangerous to have something that is powered, specifically something that can create a fire if left unattended. So that's it. Take care.